130th Street in Parma. It starts at 1 p.m. So if you didn't know, the time has been changed because originally it was going to be at noon, but it's going to be at 1 o'clock today. So again, the address is 6055 West 130th Street in Parma. And the time that it begins is 1 o'clock. With that, let's welcome to the program Brother Hamtonio, who is going to be attending that service, I'm fairly certain. So
Mhm.
let's give the brother his flowers while we can. Brother Hamtonio?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Brother that's been fighting for a whole lot of years against violence and gang violence, and traveling across the country as well to try to minimize violence between our young brothers, fraternize and it just you can't say a whole more enough for this good brother. He's been on the front line. He's been courageous in the streets, talking to folks in the streets, the young brothers, and trying to get them on the right path. So we got to honor the brother. I guess we need to be thankful too that the brother was here in Cleveland. His presence, thanks his wife as well for offering up him, to the public like that, because he spent a lot of time in the streets and talking to people and in meetings and things like that. So let's give honor to the brother.
Absolutely. And we can also mention that he has been a guest on 360 Info Network, basically bringing the streets to us and making us aware of the things that were going on and ways that things were being addressed. I know one of the things that we talked about was mediation, finding a way to, I guess peace in the hood was all about bringing it into gang violence. And I know that there were certain times when he was doing what he was doing that there were actually truces in the city. So
Yeah,
he
that's right.
was an effective warrior for us.
Mhm.
And I guess now the question is who fills
Who's gonna
those
take the
shoes now?
lead? Huh?
you know. So
Right.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Um, just wanted to make a quick announcement. We have a few activities that are going to be taking place at Larchmere Arts on the 3rd of April, which is a Friday. We're going to welcome Gloria Cummings Jones and her trio to Larchmere Arts. Ed Ridley, Elijah Gilmore, and Brad McGee, very talented musicians, top level jazz being played in that venue on that day. And then on the next day, April 4th, I'll be celebrating a birthday. Ken LeGrand is going to join me on stage as well as Elijah Gilmore. We're going to do music. I'm going to get some cake, and I'm saying champagne, but it's actually going to be sparkling cider. So looking forward to that. I can't have folks out there getting drunk on my dime. What can I say?
Mhm.
We're going to bring into our conversation Nana Kwamina the second. I thought that he was over in Ghana. He is here in Cleveland. He's back from the other side of the world, continuing to do great things. If you don't know, he is the founder and the creator of Wings Academy. It's an African centered school here in the Cleveland Municipal School District. If you don't have children in that school and you have the possibility of putting in that school, I would absolutely highly recommend it because there they will be able to go to school and get a sense of their identity and their
Mhm.
purpose in life. And it is different from the other schools. So kudos to Dr. Whitaker for making that happen. I will also mention that Dr. Whitaker is an Akan chief. He is known as Nana Kwamina II, and he is doing magnificent things over in Ghana. So we welcome him back to the States. I know it's been an adjustment for him, but we welcome him back, and I'm sure he can't wait to get back. So welcome to 360 Info. Nana Kwamina II. How are you today, Nana?
I am well, and I'm happy to see you, brothers. And I think it would be only fitting if I made some commentary about our brother, who will soon be an ancestor, Khalid Samad. We worked together over the years. He he represents as a model of the type of sacrifice that we don't have enough of.
Mhm.
And the word sacrifice is a big part of what allows a people to continue to move forward, because there have to be people who are willing like you're doing on this show, like Lynn is doing with activities. These are all sacrifices in the interest of the larger community. And so if you don't have enough people willing to make sacrifices, it's almost impossible to sustain anything, because nobody lives forever. But the journey is goes on forever. So if you don't have people readily willing to make sacrifice when the time comes, it's virtually impossible to sustain anything, because progress takes longer than one lifetime. It just does. And so it has to be sustained somehow. And Khalid was an example of the endurance, the stick to itiveness, the walking the walk, not just talking the talk, so that you can qualify as what we say is a role model, which means a person that served in a role that is worthy of being replicated. It's not just a fancy term that says like it's a role model, like a Rolls Royce. It's a definition of behavior that established a model that is worthy of being replicated. So we got to give the props to Khalid and all the others ancestors that you're joining. He's joining all the people that have done the same thing in their time on their watch. And we're just hopeful that we're able to do a little bit of the same thing on our watch.
Mm-hmm.
We will leave some kind of model that somebody considers worthy of replicating to. So
Good point. Good point.
really,
Mm-hmm.
I was really shook by that news. But
Mm-hmm.
as we say, nothing lasts forever.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Doc, you said something that I kind of speak on and think about when we are really taking a good look at where we at right now. I mean, far as a country, a society, the influences that Black folks have had over here in this country, and then when we throw up the term and use the term loosely, civilization. With the root word being civil. And so when you said things being worthy to replicate, or things following a certain paradigm or way of life or things of that nature, how does that size up from where we at right now? As is the question we need to ask ourselves. The system that we, or the society that we are living in right now, is it worthy to replicate? Is it worthy to follow? Is it worthy to put all your energies in and duplicate the life experiences that you are having right now in America? Black folks, I'm talking about.
Well, your question is trying to get me into trouble on the of the interview. Well, let me suggest this. What you may have, there may be something you had in mind for what you wanted me to do today.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I have some things I'd like to share as
Mm-hmm.
well, but I don't want to get ahead of the program. I'm just the guest, not the architect of the program. So let me know if I have a freer reign. If so, I can incorporate that information into what I'm saying. If
No
there's something
doubt, Doc. No
I want,
doubt. This is your show, Doc. Go ahead.
well, the theme that I would like to put forth today, without getting into too much trouble, is to remind us of things that we heard in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. There was a theme that was put to us as younger people that said you have to think globally and then act locally, which meant to us you have to have an understanding of what's going on in all the places that you don't know to determine how you should behave in the place where you are, because you're not living in a vacuum. You're not living in a bubble. And there are things outside of you that are impacting the things that you feel. So you have to be astute enough to understand both of these things. And so I'm thinking that part of the problem that we have is that there's a geopolitical 3D chess game being played internationally. And our administration, in response to that, is playing giveaway checkers and boasting and bragging about everything that is being sacrificed in a different kind of a game. So these two things will not ever match up. So we have an administration that's talking about all the successes, all the immediate captures and victories that are being experienced at the same time where international experts like I wrote down some names like Scott Ritter, Douglas MacArthur, Chris Hedges, Jeffrey Sachs, and a number of other people. These are people that are all white now.
Richard Wolff
Saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're ex-military people that are saying there's no chance of victory here. You have Jeffrey Sachs that's saying this is the most despicable display of a debacle that we've ever seen. You have Chris Hedges that's been saying the demise, the end of the American hegemony for years.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these events are now playing in a reinforces things that have been forecast by people that are closer to these situations than we are. The military people are saying things like the US military is actually antiquated when it comes to the technology that's available now. And they remind us in the sports vernacular that you could talk about how powerful you are, how good you are, but you haven't won a war since Vietnam. You got a losing streak ever since Vietnam. You have not won anything with this powerful military. That's not Nana Krakamina saying that. That's the ex-military people that are saying that. So Vietnam you lost, and you've lost every war since then. So where do you get the idea that you're going to be so successful and so powerful when you have a losing record? Then we don't have, I did a program in Ghana about 3 years ago, and I mentioned the formation of BRICS. And there was only one person in the audience that had ever heard of BRICS at the time. I said, how could that be possible? This is the potential formation of the largest collaboration that will challenge the Western hegemony and create a whole new global currency fiscal dynamic. But no one's ever heard of it. Well, now the BRICS, which was 5 nations at that time, as you know, has grown by at least 50 other nations that represent probably 70% of the global population and a GDP that is at least 5 times greater than the US. And they don't have a $32 trillion debt. So this dynamic should say to us that, as we would say with any sports team, well, you had a good run. But the up and coming teams are just stronger. They're more athletic. They're something.
Mm-hmm.
This is not sustainable, and it's not going to come back because you've added to the demise by severing relationships with everyone that could be a supporter to you, as if you could live in this world all by yourself. You have no allies, and you're priding yourself on the fact that you're getting rid of allies in a world that's globally integrated. But you don't have any allies, so you're going to go it alone. So how are you going to go it alone,
Oh.
even militarily, when you need China to produce the chips that allow your weapons to function?
Right.
You don't produce the chips that allow you to
Are
be
you getting that
militarily
too, Van?
powerful. So you can have a stockpile of bombs, but if they don't explode because you don't have chips, what good is that? So that won't work. You isolated China to the point that it became totally self-reliant. And now China virtually doesn't need anyone. But you can't stock your grocery stores because Walmart, that gets everything from China, if you say, well, we won't do that and we'll put tariffs on you and sanctions on you, Walmart can't get the stuff that you have, so you can't get food. So that doesn't seem smart. They closed the Strait of Hormuz. You don't produce oil. So what is it that you think is going to happen if you don't get the oil? Virtually everything that the U.S. needs is imported. That's what makes the trade deficit a legitimate figure that's talked about. You're importing more than you're exporting. So if you encourage people, the allies that you would have had, or the friends that you need to have, or the enemies that you're dependent on to turn their back on you, you recognize that all of those imports that make your society operate will stop flowing. Then you have internal unrest because you don't have food at the stores. The gas at the pumps is 3 times higher. You can't get electricity. Canada provides electricity to you, but you say you're going to put tariffs on them. And so they decide, well, maybe we should just get another ally instead. This is not workable. So the direct answer to the question you asked me, Antonio, no, this American system is not sustainable. Everybody knows that, except the people that want to have a romantic feeling about something that doesn't match reality. This is not sustainable. You can't say you're independent where you can't provide anything for yourself that you really need. You're dependent. It's like an adolescent in your house that you won't let use your car. And their rebuttal is, well, I'm going to go to my room and close my door. Well, that's not your room. That's a room in my house that you're using. You don't have any room. You're delusional because I've been allowing you to use that space. You think it belongs to you, and you think you can challenge me. And it's actually my room in my house that I pay the bills for. So there's something wrong with your reasoning. Now, let me buttress some of the things I'm saying right now. Diane Sawyer, who we know as a respected journalist, years ago, she ran a program and took a U-Haul to people's houses just to see how much in the house was made in China. And they would remove everything out of the house except the things that were not made in China. On every example, they removed 99 point something percent of everything in the house to make it clear to us that almost everything that we own is made in China. So that makes you dependent on China. It's not just that it's a more attractive deal, it's a lower price. it tells you that if China decides not to send you anything, you have a problem. So that relates to the day-to-day dynamics of living. Let me tell you what happened in education. I've mentioned this. Education is one of the most significant social infrastructural apparatuses on any continent, in any country. Is how do you prepare the next generation so that they will continue to produce and promote and preserve the values that you feel are important. So about 10 years ago, the Chinese government removed the minister of education because they learned that their third graders were no longer able to outperform U.S. high school students. Now let that sink in. They fired the administration because they saw that as a serious deficiency if their third grade Chinese students were no longer outperforming Western high school students in science and math. They brought in new people to reinforce this slide, this dramatic slide that they felt would undermine what they were doing. So this tells you, if that's the case, this tells you that there's no system of education anywhere in the world that can compete with the Chinese. So you can't say you're superior to the Chinese in that manner. Every strategy that the administration does to try to put the squeeze on the Chinese respond with undermining the local Western structure. If you say you're going to put tariffs on their cars because Elon Musk doesn't want the world to realize that the Tesla is nothing more than a Yugo hoopty compared to the Chinese electric vehicle. I've seen these vehicles. If you haven't seen them, the Chinese vehicle will come out of a parking lot and follow you to where you're standing. It'll park itself. It will turn around 360 in the middle of a highway. It doesn't have to back up, go back, turn, go back, turn. It'll rotate 360. It will come to a parallel parking spot and the wheels will turn towards the curb and it just moves directly to the curb and then the wheels turn back in a forward direction. So the tariffs are because the Chinese car, which is less than half the price of the Tesla too. So you can't invite a product like this to the US and think it won't destroy the Tesla operation. But if you don't know these things, you'll buy the rhetoric that China has done this, that, and the other. They've just outperformed you, that's all. And so you have to try to protect yourself by putting 100% tariff, which makes the car unaffordable so you don't have the competition and you can ride around saying the Tesla is the best thing since sliced bread. Well, that's only because you're ignorant about what's going on. So these are the dynamics, not to mention all of the mistakes that have been made. And if you're apprised of things, you can see the errors and you can see how it won't work. When this war started, I mentioned to someone, they said, what do you think is going to happen? I said, well, this is a geopolitical chess game. And for those people that play chess, everybody that plays chess knows you cannot capture a king with your queen alone. That's impossible. And to me, America's trying to fight with its queen, which is the military. The military by itself will not beat another person, another nation that has allies that are supporting them. And if you run that military out there, it's going to be trapped. It's going to be tricked. It's going to be
outmaneuvered and everything.
Outmaneuvered. You just can't use a queen to try to capture a king because it has too many support personnel. And so I said, so this is unachievable. It may take a little while. The queen can run around doing things, but it's going to get trapped eventually because you have nothing to support it. And so, but that's what all the naval and army people say. This is silly. Boots on the ground. There's not going to be boots on the ground. Why? Because we've talked about this on other shows. It's not going to be boots on the ground because the demographics say that America doesn't have enough boots. You don't have 1 million military personnel to put on the ground. Your population is declining as it is. You're going to sacrifice all the men to go over here killed? Exacerbates the problem you already have. That's what Viagra is supposed to be addressing. Now you're going to just go let people get killed or children. So you're not going to kill the donors of the children. So the whole thing is just silly. But as long as people don't know any better, you can say anything to a child. So this is not going to work. I think that we need to be thinking seriously. I've been thinking this way for at least a decade, seriously about what is an exit strategy out of this geographical space. So people accuse me at times, their response to me is say, well, Nana, all you want Black people to be is more African. That's all you want them to be is more like African, more like African, more like African. I said, that's not what I'm saying. But there's one thing I would like you to adopt that Africans do. And everybody knows Kemet. Everybody knows the splendor of Kemet. Everybody knows the accolades that Kemet received. Everybody knows the fact that Kemet's ruins is the second greatest generator of EDP for Egypt. People go to Egypt to look at the ruins of the Kemetic civilization, and that generates more revenue than anything in the country except one, which I think is diamonds or jewels or something. So everybody knows that. So I say, but everybody knows this too, or history tells us that these were African people. And at some point, the African people looked around at Kemet when all of its splendor, all of its advancement, all of its 5-star ratings on its architecture, its civilization, its astronomy, astrology, medicine, education, everything. They said to themselves, this shit ain't gonna work no more. They
right. Hey Doc. Hey Doc, one second. See, yeah, I know where you're going with that, but we got to take a quick break. I want you to continue that lane that you're traveling in when we come back.
I'm here.
Okay. And one thing that I just wanted to interject, we have this war going on right now. And while they have this war going on as a distraction, they're completely restructuring the financial systems and they're backing the US dollar with stable coins. This is a new strategy that they've employed. They are allowing the banks now to hold crypto assets as of April 1st, 2026. So they're, like you said, they're playing chess. They're not playing checkers. And while they got everybody looking at what's going on in the Straits of Hormuz, they're setting themselves up for success and setting everyone else up for failure. 360 Info Network is brought to you by the Cleveland Observer, and we are going to step away for just a few moments, but we'd just like to remind you that you should be looking out for this newspaper and getting all the information that it is able to provide you. We will be right back.
Cleveland has stories worth telling and voices that deserve to be heard. That's why the Cleveland Observer is proud to sponsor 360 Info Network with Vince Robinson and Antonio on AM 1490 WERE, where truth, culture, and conversation come together. Each week, host Vince Robinson and Antonio open the door to powerful discussions, from the arts and community history to to the issues shaping our neighborhoods today. And the Cleveland Observer is right there with them, shining a light on the people and movements building a stronger Cleveland. Tune in to 360 Info Network and visit cleobserver.com to read, watch, and share more stories that inform, inspire, and unite our community. Because together, we are Cleveland's voice.
360 Info Network brought to you by the Cleveland Observer. Also, just wanted to let you know about a few other things as we get back into the program. You can check out our program on YouTube. You can go to The Journey with Antonio and watch 360 Info Network live on that channel. You can also go to my YouTube channel, which is Vince Robinson. The number is 3193. You can go to the 360 Info Network Facebook page, and you can also go to my Facebook page and witness 360 Info Network. So there are a lot of different ways that you can get there. When you go to our respective YouTube channels, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost anything. Hit the notification bell, and you will get alerts as to when we post new content. As soon as this program concludes, it automatically gets uploaded to our YouTube channel. So if you're not able to tune in during the actual broadcast, you can always come back and check us out at a later time. So, Brother Antonio, you wanted Nana to continue in the lane that he was traveling.
Out of Kemet.
Mm-hmm.
And so my point is that the Kemetic people who were African, the same people that populated the entire planet, if you step back for 1 second and know what that means, it means that African people are not afraid to explore new things. They're curious by nature. And that's how the planet Earth got populated, because African people journeyed to different places. So it's not like Europeans brought African people to everywhere you see African presence today. The people went there on their own because they're curious and they have confidence in their ability to go places and develop and do things, because they're also aware of their innate talents, skills, and capabilities. So what I would like our people to be more like in terms of Africans is Africans recognize when something doesn't work, and they don't continue trying to make it work because they know they have the confidence to be able to replicate it someplace else. So Africans left Kemet and they went and developed the kingdoms that we study in history. Timbuktu, Songhai Empire. All of these empires were created by the people that left Kemet, and they simply did what they had done before. So my question to us is, if the Kemetic people would leave everything that the world considered 5-star and the envy of humanity, why would you stay in a place where you have 0? It's not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. And you keep holding out and crossing your fingers on some elusive notion that this is going to get better. African people don't do that. When they recognize that something is not working, they go someplace else and apply their skills, talents, and expertise to a new territory. So that's what I mean in the way I'd like us to be. So I'm going to give a quick survival kit for our people who are in a place that everybody knowledgeable will say is not going to make a comeback. We can do that with the Cleveland Browns every year because it's only sports. It's not a matter of life and death. But if it's more serious, you can't just say, well, there's always next year, because there isn't always next year. And even if it is next year, it just is worse than this year. So that's not an intelligent strategy to deal with real life situations. So here's a survival kit for our people. If you don't have a passport, get a passport, because the day might come that you decide that you are not really where you want to be and you can't get out. So get yourself a passport just in case you may decide that this is not working for you. At least you can go someplace else. The world is filled with other places. It's only America that has convinced you that it's the best place on earth. So that's what's the paradigm that's in your mind. No place could be better than this. But that's only because you haven't been anywhere else. There's lots of other places better than this. You just don't know of them. So prepare yourself to go find out if you feel that there's an emergency. Now, yeah, what you just mentioned is critical. While this war is going on, and we know from history now that the people that are responsible for this war are also looking ahead to all the money they're going to make to rebuild all these nations through the contracts that they give to themselves. All the cement work, the electrical work, the steel work is going to generate years and years of rebuilding. Because at the end of all of this, nobody's going to say they're going to just leave countries in rubble. They're going to get tractors. John Deere is going to make a killing. They're going to get tractors. They're going to remove all this rubble. They're going to clear it out. They're going to level the land, and they're going to rebuild. And they're going to send contractors all over the world that will make millions and billions of dollars to rebuild all the stuff they're destroying right now. The same people are making a killing. Excuse the use of the term. They're making a killing because war always produces money. These planes that are being shot down, you're talking about $1 billion that have been shot down. So they're going to replace these things. All this ammunition, it takes money to do this stuff. So these companies that produce this war machinery, they're not complaining. So they're going to rebuild all of this. It's not going to involve us. It's going to involve the same people that are benefiting from the war. It's going to involve them when it comes time to rebuilding stuff. So we're not in that game. We're not in that club. Meantime, what you're saying, all this talk about anti-cryptocurrency, but the banks are all getting involved in the cryptocurrency game. So they're going to replace those dollars. They'll reevaluate the crypto at whatever they want. And so the debt that is on the books right now, that $32 trillion, $37 trillion of debt, it could evaporate overnight. If you evaluate the crypto as high enough, it just erases the debt. So we're all good. So that means your dollars won't be worth anything. So you won't have any money. And so you tell me, how are you going to operate in an environment where you have no money? You're going to be in a concentration camp. You're going to be in homeless shelters. You're going to be I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know what your plan is, but you got to start asking yourself, what are you going to do if you have no money and money has been converted to some other commodity that you don't have? You're going to be a victim. You're going to be very close to what you cry about. Historically, you're going to be the new 21st century slave. You have nothing. As the World Economic Forum said, you will own nothing, you will have nothing, and you'll be happy. So maybe you will be happy, but what if you don't? So I'm going to offer, if anybody's interested, so we can see right now, if we just look and be objective, all of the discussion that has gone on for years about reparations, you can kind of see that that's not ever going to happen. If you're honest with yourself, just look in the mirror and you can just be honest with yourself. Where's the reparations going to come from? So let's assume that there's not going to be any reparation. So you're not going to get that. It's not going to be a windfall that you just get one day. So what do you do in the meantime? So I don't want to discuss it on the air, but if there's anybody listening to me that is interested in a strategy to generate revenue in the crypto world that we are moving to, whether we like it or not, leave my number, my email address, and get in touch with me. That's the closest you're going to get to reparations. Going to get any closer than that. Closest you're going to get. Don't have your hand held out and don't have any hope based on you're going to get reparations. Forget that. Even if it was $1 million, it won't be in fiat currency. It's going to be in something that you'll be controlled 100% on what you can do with it, what you can't do with it, but you just don't know that. So it all sounds good to you.
Yep.
But I'm telling you, it's not going to work. It's not
Work.
So
Doc, here's something too, Doc. You know, and I'm you talked about it, and I think about it all the time. I kind of used to ask a similar question about, you know, what are we thinking or what we think is going to happen. And I think a lot of us, what's the psychological premise of what's going on? Like with black folks, I know we spiritual people, and we sometimes I think that we got in a lot of trouble because of that, or welcoming a stranger and thinking everybody was on the same level they were. But I think we think in the back of our mind that the system here is going to have some type of epiphany and have a come to Jesus moment and even up the playing field. I mean, what's the psychosis that is going on for us to see that with all this history that in background that we have to show that, you know, he may not even be capable of doing that.
Well, my sense is there's a river in Kemet called the Nile. So if we put a little French on it, it would be denial. Nile. We have been convinced, and we want to believe, we have been westernized to the point that we just can't bring ourselves to admit that this is not working. I was listening to the two military people that I mentioned, Douglas McGregor and the other one. And they were talking about the aircraft carriers that the U.S. is working with. He said, those were great in World War II. But that's not modern warfare now. They have drones that can take these ships out. They have missile alert systems that can recognize a plane 300 miles away from its target and target it. So one of them even said they've been watching too many Maverick movies. They've been watching too many movies about this. What's the title of the movie with what about the fighters, aircraft carrier that what's his name did? You know, the guy I'm talking about. The
aircraft carrier, you say?
Aircraft carriers with the fighting planes.
Like
Top
what
Gun.
Tom Cruise was in?
Top Gun.
Top Gun, yeah.
They've been watching too many reruns of Top Gun. And I just found out that the Top Gun, which you probably know, but I'm sure audience doesn't know, the Top Gun was a black guy.
Black. Yeah.
This whole thing is another awakening of how much greatness is in our people that has been concealed and stolen and repackaged. And these are all black people were the top guns. So to say that Tom Cruise is the top gun, that's all right for Hollywood, but that ain't real life. And so now he said, well, they're just been watching too much Top Gun reruns. This is not modern military. And so that these carriers, they look big in the ocean, but they can be taken down. So it's just, but our people just don't want to bring themselves. I attribute it to the mentality that we don't want to sacrifice. We don't want to actually do work. We don't want to put ourselves in a position where we have to be responsible. You know, one of the most difficult things to do in life is to take care of yourself. If you think about it, that's what you do. That's what you guys do every day. You don't have the post office job that you go to and pretend like you're working and you're sitting around talking. You don't have that job. You don't have any job. If you don't work, you don't eat. African people have always taken care of themselves. So we have too many people that they don't want to do the things that are necessary to be done to be responsible as a human being. You think the government is going to bail you out, but there's no objective evidence of that. You're just wishful thinking. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. So you can keep thinking that, but that's the mentality that we have. When I mentioned BRICS to somebody, I said, well, BRICS is working because China wants to be the global currency instead of the petrodollar. They said, what's a petrodollar? I said, you never heard of a petrodollar? They said, no. So I said, let me explain you a petrodollar. Their response was, well, the U.S. ain't going to let something like that happen. I said, how is it going to stop that just because you say that? The people are already dealing with each other outside of the U.S. dollar. It's the demand for the U.S. dollar that props up the U.S. economy. You can't just print money during COVID and give it to people and think that the world doesn't recognize that as monopoly. So it's not supported by, how is money going to be printed and given to you that's not supported by anything and you think that is all right? Somebody's going to have to pay for this through inflationary factors. So the item that you would have bought is just going to cost more because the supplier knows that there's nothing backing that money. So instead of you paying $1 for bread, it just costs $4. You say it's cool because you got the $4. But it's still erosional. That is unsustainable. So when the rest of the world says, well, we're not going to participate in this, that little game of cards is going to fall apart. If China says, well, we're going to deal with Russia without the dollar, and we're going to deal with these other countries without the dollar. Well, the dollar is the only thing that keeps this propped up.
Mm-hmm.
So that ain't going to work.
Mm-hmm. But you know what's interesting with that, Doc? And that's why I say this is some divine stuff going on right now, because now you got other European countries, you know, making their way around America, and we're having agreements with us, isolating America. That's something we should really be looking at and paying attention to.
Well, you have to realize that the world has been created actually as a global family. And America has been for a long time the headmaster of the global family. And so America could do whatever it wanted to do because it was the head of the global family, and it had the military to force all of the family members to stay in line. But things have changed. And now there's other family members that have grown strong enough. It's like Black Panther. The people are vying, they're trying to get strong enough to challenge T'Challa to be the head of the family. Well, the global community has gotten different splinter groups now that are strong enough to challenge the one head of family. And the one head of family cannot be superior to all of the other family members if they decide to get together. And if you behave in a way that you're not a pleasant head of family, you encourage the family members to organize against you and isolate you. Mm-hmm. And you're contributing to that because you say you want to be alone. So nobody has to withdraw from you. You're withdrawing from everything else. So you're going to be alone in a world that has been orchestrated to be a global village, which means you got to get things from other places. You don't have everything you need to sustain yourself. So you got to get something from other places. You got to have imports. So what if nobody imports to you? Now you got to grow all your own food. Now there's one thing that I think is prophetic and spiritually guided. I've said this for years, but people have said, well, that doesn't make sense. The thing that I've said for years, I said, well, it appears to me that this structure is unsustainable. And when it collapses, Africa is in an ideal place because your society, by comparison, is already on ground level. So the fall from the top for you is no place. You're there already. But when these other highly developed, highly sophisticated economies collapse, you've got to somehow adjust to a standard of living that is unthinkable for you. People will commit suicide rather than sweep bridges now, or rather than pick up trash. You'll say, well, life ain't worth living. That's what I got to do. But in Africa, people live like this every day. So this is not going to be a big fall from some great height of sophistication. You take baths in the river now. So if the shower didn't work anymore, it's not going to be a big detriment to you. But these other countries where you're living off of the sweat and abuse of the world that created this artificial standard of living for you, when you have to give that up, that's going to feel like it's intolerable. And that will level this playing field, because the people in the Western nations, they are not going to be able to deal with this.
Yeah, they ain't ready for
That
that.
paradigm that they've had is gonna change so fast that there's no way to adjust to it, and they are just gonna go out of their minds. When African people are gonna say, well, we didn't have a car yesterday, so we don't have one today, so we're gonna walk just like we did yesterday. You'll be able to build. And they've gotten all of the developed world is being drawn into this madness. So you're going to potentially destroy all of the developed nations as you try to sort this out. Meanwhile, if Africa just keeps doing what it's doing, be quiet, wait for the smoke to clear, you're going to be in a position where you can resume what should have never been undone in the first place. That's what I feel. That's what it appears to be to me.
Okay, we've got about 65 seconds before the broadcast on AM 1490 ends. So I just want to invite everyone who is listening to us on the radio right now. You can go to the 360 Info Network Facebook page. You can also go to the Journey with Hamtonio. You can go to my YouTube channel, and you can watch us on those respective channels and continue the conversation that we're having. Our guest is Nana Kra Kwamina II, also known to some as Dr. Kwa David Whitaker, and we're having a most interesting conversation right now about things that are going on in the world. Also, want to give a big shout out to our engineer, Tone Harley. Can't say enough about what the brother does for us. Because of him, we are able to do what we are doing right now, and we are very grateful to him. Just a couple of also quick announcements. Larchmere Arts on April 3rd and 4th, there will be events. You can visit the Larchmere Arts Facebook page to get details about those events. As always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. Make it a great day, Cleveland, and the rest of the world. Peace.
Happy birthday.
All right. We are live on YouTube and Facebook right now with Kwa David Whitaker, Nana Kra Kwamina II. And as always, he brings wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and we are grateful to him for that. we're talking about what's going on in the world right now. You know, it's interesting that we have a president who says there will be no wars. Then he goes into Venezuela and snatches their leader. He attacks Iran and takes out their leader. You know, so there's some
And he's not stopping there because he's looking at Cuba and a few other places. I mean, what we and here's the thing, though. Let me interject real quick, Vince. The thing is, this is how crazy it is, and it's maybe how he runs his business. No plan, no plan of far as a war. You got your people over there that's in these bases and in these countries. You didn't have no strategy of getting them out before you do it. You didn't think about them the Strait of Hormuz. You didn't think about that could happen or this can happen. No contingency plan. If this happened, what we're going to do. You just like you run your business, you made a decision and didn't think about the consequences of it. Crazy.
Well, in terms of that, he was actually advised by a top military general that doing what he planned to do was not a good idea. And the Iranians were prepared for him. So, you know, they were engaged in 2026 warfare while he was still stuck in the Vietnam War era. So what they did to effectively shut down the Straits of Hormuz, that was Iran reacting the way they should have. I watched a video earlier in the week that disclosed what their strategy was. And basically, they held back on their best weapons.
Right, that's what I heard. Yes.
So it's like America's playing checkers and Iran is playing chess, and now they got the whole world by the cojones right now. They're paying $7 a gallon for gas in California right now, but their wages did not go up to accommodate for the increase in the price of living. So
but look at the other piece. Now he's reaching out to these other countries to help him. You didn't ask them before you went in the war. Now you asking them to come help me. I can't believe this, man.
Yeah, well, that's where we are, but it just goes to what we've been talking about, and that is we have to have our own strategies for dealing with things right now. If they shut down the grid and you can't spend digital currency, and most of the money in the world right now is digital currency. Most of the money in America is digital currency. If they shut that down, what you gonna do? Well, if you got some silver, you got some gold, you good. But if you don't have silver and gold, and most people don't, then they're not prepared to deal with things. You know, we need to learn about how we can feed ourselves, because if they shut the stores down, then what you gonna do? We've always taken care of ourselves. To Nana's point, we've always taken care of ourselves. They don't have welfare systems in African countries. No. The people know what they have to know. They do what they have to do. They know their plants and their shrubs. You know, they find a way, and that's exactly what we're going to have to do. Nana?
We're gonna have to do that. But to the question you're raising, the mentality of, we've seen this as kids in school. We've seen this in sports. We've seen this repeatedly, but we don't necessarily apply it to other arenas of life. We've seen up close bullies on the playground, in the neighborhood. We've seen bullies. So the current administration is based on a bully ball, which is good until someone stands up to this bully and you begin to see what the bully is actually made of. As long as it's the boogeyman in the closet, which my mother used with me to keep me in bed. He said the boogeyman was, if you get out of that bed, that boogeyman's in the closet, he's gonna get you, and I don't have any way to get to you in time to save you from the boogeyman. So if I was you, I would stay in bed. And so I stayed under the covers until one night I had to go to the bathroom so bad. I said, well, I'm gonna just have to face the bully, and whatever happens is gonna happen. And so the first thing I put through the covers back, I jumped up, I went to the closet, and opened the door and looked in there. There was nothing in there but my clothes. And so I said, my mother has tricked me all this time to make me believe that something's in there that's horrible, and there's nothing in there but my clothes. And that taught me that if you can create the psychological climate that is so intimidating, the people will simply not challenge it. And so the current administration has dealt throughout his whole life being an imposing, intimidating figure that people have simply not challenged, because he had the legal apparatus to make your life miserable. He had the bluster of talking big. And all that works until one day it's like Iron Mike Tyson. It works fine until Buster Douglas knocks him out. Then the mystique is gone. It's Tiger Woods until something happens and he gets beat. It's Venus and Serena until somebody comes along and says, well, we can beat them. So it's actually, in a way, the bully creates an environment where other people get themselves prepared and wait for the opportunity to pounce on you. And so the opportunity has arrived. The bully ball doesn't work. The other people that you've been, so the strategy now has been that we'll take Venezuela, we'll take their oil, we'll control them. So we're collecting the chess pieces on the board, Venezuela, Cuba. So we will own these things and make us the hegemonic captain of the Western Hemisphere. And we'll let China and other people have the Eastern Hemisphere, and we'll coexist like this. All that sounds good, except for the fact that you're dependent on that hemisphere for everything that you get. You can't just decide to grow food for a nation overnight. You can't decide to start producing goods and services and equipment overnight, because it takes years to develop the machinery to provide these things, the mechanism, the infrastructure. So you're thinking that you can just do this because you can go to Venezuela, we'll take their president. That took 3 days, so we're good there. So we can go to Cuba, take their president. We can go to Iran and take their president out or their leader out, and we'll be in control of everything. But it just doesn't work quite that simple. And so that's the mentality you have. That's what's being destroyed, is this illusion of this invincible man just because he's a big bully. So the midterm elections is probably going to change, put the final nail in that coffin. So the big bully is good if you can control the House and the Senate. You can make them do what you say because you can campaign against them, and all they want to do is be reelected. So you campaign against them, they acquiesce and vote on what you say you want to do, or you don't even ask them because you don't have to, because you're the big bully. So
you know what works with along that, Doc, along those things, because it wasn't too recently, the last couple of years that I really paid any attention to NATO. You hear them talk about it, you hear this, that, and other, but have people really looked and seen the countries that were involved in NATO? They telling you right there that this is a European alliance, that we're trying to run the whole doggone world. So the thing that is interesting, that one man, and because America was on the forefront of that NATO piece, there was a major player and a major piece in the NATO scheme of things. Taking that out, so I'm looking at this global thing of this shift still. It's just more evidence as far as the changing of the geopolitics and the geographical areas and how things is set up and made up, that if this NATO thing falls the way it is, I think that's contributing and showing signs of this whole European whole that has been in place for these years, and the whole change up in this whole dynamics of global power.
I just want to invoke something real quickly because the Democrats and Republicans actually work in concert with each other. And we have this idea that there's all this opposition and so forth and so on. But again, I'm just reflecting on some things that I've gathered in terms of information in the past week. The whole situation with the lawsuit against Ripple, which is the company that's responsible for XRP, that dance that they were having against cryptocurrency in the past 4 or 5 years, all of this was orchestrated to give the legacy systems an opportunity to rebuild and create a new digital infrastructure. And that's what's going on right now. The Genius Act, it was genius. The Clarity Act is clarity. And both of these sets of legislation are creating the groundwork and the foundation for the implementation of the new system.
Mhm.
The reason that we had that 4-year lawsuit with Ripple against Ripple was so that the banks could develop their strategies. JP Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon, and all these characters, they've been working on this plan for years. And while they had us distracted with all the machinations that they were doing in the news, they were quietly building this new infrastructure. And that's why they will be able to store your crypto assets. That the whole idea about stable coins and the pushback against stable coins being able to earn yields. You know, you could have stable coins and they will pay you interest the same way if you had a money market certificate, you could get interest on that. They've given you this idea that the banks are afraid that all this money is going to move from the banks to cryptocurrencies, to stable coins.
Right.
But what they've done is they've created a platform that will enable them to enrich themselves. And that's been the plan all along. So, yes, the president in ways is a bully. Yes, he's doing things that don't seem to make sense to us, but they're doing things behind the scenes without our awareness. 99% of the people on this planet know absolutely nothing about cryptocurrency. They don't know anything. If you ask them about tokenization, they don't know what tokenization is. But these things are going to be the things that result in a complete transformation of the banking system as we know it today. It's passe. It's already here. We always talk about the future. The future is right now. And they are building the infrastructure that it will enable them to continue. You know, they've scared people away from Bitcoin in the past few months because we've been involved in this bear market, right? So people are thinking, well, well, that's the end of Bitcoin. It's not the end of Bitcoin. It's not. Trust and believe it's not. They have plans. And here's where it really gets deep. The Epstein files and the whole Epstein situation is an integral part of this whole scheme. So there's much more to the story than is being told, and I'll just leave it there. Nana?
Let me respond to a couple of things you're saying. If we think of the symbol of the American system, it's an eagle. If we think of the etymology of an eagle, which is the representative symbol of the country, it has a left wing and a right wing. That should tell us, if we just understand the biology, the dynamics of a bird, it has a left wing and a right wing that have to work in concert for the bird to fly. So we should know that these parties that we consider to be at odds all the time is just for a dramatic display for the public to reinforce the idea that you have a balance of power and you have checks and balances everywhere. But the administration is showing you that it can tell that bird where to fly without ever discussing anything with anybody. So you know that system is not working in the way you think it is. the way you're told. And you're right. The average person knows nothing about crypto or anything else. How do we know that? Because the education system has seen to it that the people will not learn how to think. They will not learn how to examine. They will not learn how to analyze anything. So you'll just take whatever the teacher says as if it's true. In any attempt to provide knowledge to people, to awaken them, what does the system do? It challenges that. It takes that away. So the system is already well aware that the populace is so ill-informed and so resistant to rigorous analysis, investigation, that they can say anything 10 times and it becomes common to the average person.
Right,
Even
right.
fabricated. It could be total fabrication. It's totally illogical. But if you have 10 commercials that do it in succession on 3 different channels, and you put it on social media as if it was some legitimate thing, everybody will repeat that back and say, well, everybody knows that.
Yeah.
True.
See, but here's the thing, Doc. Here's the thing that's bothering me, and it seems like we just can't crack that nut. And understanding the human nature and the psychological and emotional strands and how things work, because MK Ultra, they worked hard in programming people. So everything in the wonderful world of psychiatry, everything is an indoctrination. Everything is indoctrination. Religious indoctrination, how, community, how everything that's being told to you. You've been indoctrinated since you was a kid. I pledge allegiance to the flag, all that stuff. It's an indoctrination. So the question is, who is doing the indoctrinating? That's the question. And do that system and do those people have your best interest at heart? The ones who is doing the indoctrinating. You see, that's the rub. So what is the history of the people that is doing the indoctrinating to you? I mean, because with Egypt, with African spirituality, with rice of patches, all that is an indoctrination.
All of it.
All of it is an indoctrination. But the problem is, who are the people that are doing the indoctrinating? That's what we need to be asking. And is there moral people that you need to follow? And is the indoctrination in the best interest of you? And that's why I'm having a problem with my people, because we're not looking at the historical breadcrumbs and being able to challenge that and say, oh, wait a minute. Why would this people put up a system that is going to work in my best interest when they got a historical background that tells you that they're not working in your best interest?
You're relating to something that brings us to a deficiency that we have. And our deficiency is we don't understand the meaning of culture. See, we think in the Western world, we think we live in a culture, but we live in a societal arrangement. Because culture has, as I've said on the show before, culture has at least 5 specific functions that we don't do. The first function of culture is to explain to people the meaning of reality. What is it that's going on in this universe? The culture has to apprise people of what is the meaning of reality, how to interpret things that are happening. We don't do that. So that first element you don't have. School doesn't do it. The closest thing to that is church. It's explaining something to you that's usually comes down to benefit the pastor and his or her maintaining their position. But it doesn't tell you what is the relationship between when you look up in the sky and the sun is there. What was the relationship between that ball of fire and the food that comes out of the ground?
Come on, Doc.
Explain to the people what is the nature of the universe that we live in, so that we don't get the idea that we're in control of nature as opposed to being a part of nature. So that's the first thing that culture is supposed to do. The second thing that culture does is to establish the rules that are needed to allow people to function together. What's the code of conduct? What does it mean to be honest, dependable, reliable, have integrity? But what does all of that mean, and how is that important to the function of the group? We don't do that. The third thing is to convey the information in the first two to the next generation. That's what we call rites of passage, or the indoctrination system. Because without that information being passed along, you can't sustain the thing, because the adults don't live forever. So you have to have a mechanism that produces the next generation that you're hopeful they will sustain what they have inherited because it works. Then you have to do two other things. You have to provide for yourself. How are you going to sustain yourself on the planet? You have to eat. You have to protect yourself from animals. You have to protect yourself from inclement weather. You have to clothe yourself. There's lots of things you have to do. So where's the mechanism that you're going to provide for yourself? We don't do that. We think the government's going to do it. But African people have always done this. And the final thing you have to do is what's the mechanism that's going to allow you to protect this apparatus from outside intervention, from calamities of nature? How are you going to protect yourself? So the Western world is saying we're going to protect ourselves by boasting to have the most powerful military in the history of the world, until Iran says, well, bring it on. That all sounds good until somebody says, well, bring it on, and we'll see. No, I don't want to talk about a ceasefire. Let's just fight this out all the way to the end now, once and for all. I'm not asking for a ceasefire. You say you're going to put boots on the ground? Bring them on. We're prepared for them. We're waiting for them. So we're not going to accept anything else now. So this is going to have to play itself out. The only fear now is whether or not the bully becomes so frustrated about the inability to have what they want that they pull out nuclear weapons. That's the fear. But bullies sometimes get frustrated. Hopefully somebody talks to the bully and say, well, look, you can save face. That's what's going on behind the scenes right now. Somebody's saying, look, you done lost this one now. You lost this. So let's stop talking about other things. You've lost this. So here's how we're going to save face. Now, we've all been in a position where we've had to save face ourselves. So you suck it up. You try to pretend like you didn't intend to do what you said you intended to do. It was misunderstood. That's not exactly what you meant. But we've all taken a beat down. And you just have to be mature enough to say, well, we lost that one. I made a mistake. Here's the good thing that came out of it. Here's the silver lining. That's what they're looking for right now. Where's the silver lining in this that will open the Strait of Hormuz so it doesn't strangle the entire global economy because of your stupidity and impulsiveness and braggadocious language? You threaten the whole global economy. So we can't let the whole global economy deteriorate because you want to be a bully. So you're going to have to get up there, despite what you might want to say, tuck that tail between your legs, try to get yourself in front of that monitor and say these words as best you can. What you're going to have to do. So hopefully somebody can get that point across. Or he gets sick and somebody has to take over and say that,
that ain't the direction I want to go. Well,
he could get sick and somebody else could take over. Or we could be told he got sick and somebody else can take over. But they're between a rock and a hard place now, and the world can see it. Their advisors told them this ahead of time. They just ignored it, saying, "No, we got this." But we've known situations where people advise us some things and say, "No, I got it," or "I'm willing to take the risk. It's a long shot, but I'm gonna go for it." Okay, fine. But if it don't work, don't say you wasn't advised. So I have plenty of situations like that, and probably you have too. So the president is in that position right now. It sounded good when it came out of your mind. Every idea we come up with sound good to us.
Yeah, but especially when you're going in there with some ulterior motives, you know, you don't get Congress permission. So it's some other reasons, you know, all he's doing is going around the planet shaking down everybody and using the military as his might, you know, his backdrop for his muscle. So, you know, and that's why he can't even tell you why, you know, those people like Chris Hedges and others say, okay, you still ain't explain what threat was Iran having to us. Nobody was bothering nobody. Obama put a deal in a long time ago and you killed that. So what's the problem?
You know what's really unfortunate though is the United States prides itself and preaches to the rest of the world about the rule of law. That's one of the pillars to its rhetoric to the rest of the world. That's why you say you want democracy. You want and people to abide by the rule of law. Well, one of the most damaging things here is the administration has ignored all of the rules that are supposed to be in place to make sure that no one takes action without the consensus of the people who you are supposed to represent. So if the people don't know, or they constantly say only 20% of the people want this, that means 80% of the people don't want this. So where could this authority come from if you are a representative, the chief representative of the people in a government that's supposed to be of the people, by the people, and for the people? So if you can ignore all of that, you're telling people that this system that we've been encouraged to believe in is really not legitimate. It's a fake because you've ignored the UN. You've violated the UN Charter. You've ignored Congress. And so now you have actually extracted most of the pillars that holds up this psychology of democracy by saying I can just do whatever I want because I can sign an executive order. But an executive order can't ignore all of the written rules in the Constitution, the UN Charter. You can't just ignore all of these things and think that's going to work and create confidence in the system that you say is good. So that's what was going to be very, very difficult to correct because people can see this now. They can see you're just running around like a dictator, signing executive orders.
That's exactly the situation. I mean, we have this illusion that democracy exists in this country,
Right.
and then this country wants to take its brand of democracy and take it to other countries and tell them that they need to implement it. But there is no such thing as democracy in this country. They don't ask our permission before they drop bombs and send missiles other places. They just do it. And I think the common denominator and all the things that we've been talking about with respect to the geopolitical situation is money.
That's it.
if people in California are paying $7, $8 a gallon for gas, somebody is getting paid. And they're not sending the money back to the people. They're collecting the money because they stand to profit from it. So, I was thinking earlier in the last hour about this whole idea of war. And the whole notion of war is an illusion, as you pointed out. What sense does it make for us to destroy a country that's providing all of the things that we use every day? What sense does it make to destroy the country that sends you the pharmaceutical substances that keep you alive? It does not make sense. What really doesn't make sense to me is how certain people can engage in practices that destroy the earth when they live on it. You're destroying the planet that you're a resident of. That doesn't make sense.
That makes sense.
It's just,
But check this out, Vince, and look at the gall. The Americans is the only ones dropped the bomb on people and killed somebody. And they're going to dictate policy on who can have a bomb and then talk about, and the people that is so compliant and complicit, and they take this when they sit up here and talk about regime change. Who in the HE is you to talk about with changing somebody in other country's regime to benefit you? Look how boisterous that is. I mean, what is you talking about, man? And but people go on and be like, yeah, well, and just brush over that what just been said, and don't look at the dynamic of what is actually being said. It just amazes me.
But it's the bully mentality that has existed for centuries.
Yeah.
We look at the whole epigenetic idea, and we think about the trauma that we carry as a people based on the experience of our ancestors. But look at their epigenetic situation. They've carried that epigenetic bully mentality for years, and they're just being true
That's
to
normal.
who they
That's
are.
very normal. Yeah.
That's just that's their modus operandi. That's what they've always done. But when we have short memories and we don't look at history, and the reality of the fact is that you have companies like BlackRock that have both sides of the equation. They got the military contracts, so they're engaged in the business of war, but they're also engaged in the business of rebuilding. So one company gets paid to tear stuff up, and then they get paid to put it back together, and they make money on both sides of the equation, and they control the currency and they control the BlackRock. Look at
like bookies, huh? Like bookies playing both sides, huh?
They stand to profit either way, and that's exactly what they're doing. But they're giving you the illusion. When Russia attacked Ukraine years ago and started that so-called war, who was in the middle of it? If you go back to the Iraq war, you had Halliburton in place. The vice president of the country who was a high-ranking person within that particular company. And it was the same thing that BlackRock is doing today. And Halliburton is probably in the mix right now. We just don't talk about it. But that's what this is all about. It is about money. It's about capital. It's about control. They're exerting this control over populations all over the world. When Russia made that move, the United States said, okay, well, we're going to freeze your assets. In the BRICS country, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, they said, oh, okay, well, we're not going to let you do that to us anymore. We're going to create our own currency. And now they have a currency that's backed by a commodity, i.e. gold. So it's really this whole situation it's an illusion. I think we create sometimes the idea that countries are opposed to each other, but they use that opposition to create opportunities for them to make money. That's the bottom line. Somebody is going to get paid, and they are getting paid right
all the
now.
money trail, they say.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna have to cut out and go pay my respects to Brother Samad, and Doc, I know what you're working on right now too, Doc.
I've got to I got to get off, but this is a great conversation. I'd like to continue it too, because our people, I believe, not that we're the experts on everything or anything, but I believe our people need to hear voices of people like them on issues that affect them.
Yes.
Just listening to CNBC or something that's telling you something, you're just going to believe that just because somebody said it.
Mhm.
Yeah, because real quick, because Joy Reid, when they booted her off, she started talking, saying that again, it's just proved the point that they dictate the narrative that want to be put out there. She said she couldn't say certain things and couldn't even cover certain things.
Of
They told her,
course,
no, you're gonna cover this and this, that, and other. So now she has the freedom to do that.
because we got to
Right.
keep in mind what we mean when we say we the people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What people? What
Yeah.
Yeah.
then we? That's what we figure.
Yeah, well, the we the people were the architects, but they were also the old white dudes that were running things that were engaged in human trafficking. That's what that was all about. And let's be clear about that. The human trafficking has not stopped. It continues today, but we honor these folks who were involved in human trafficking as we look at their faces on the bills of the fiat currency that's on its way out of circulation right now.
Yeah.
So I know you guys are counting up your dollars right now as you navigate the electronic digital platform that folks can take advantage of if they are aware of it. And I'm going to say this. I think that in certain ways there are forces out there that want to create misinformation, disinformation, and discouragement from participating in the new digital platform that is connected to our money system. So this is what I would like to request for the folks who are watching us on YouTube and Facebook right now. Do some research, do some homework. Look into the new financial system that is being created as we speak and find out as much as you can about it so that you can participate. Because what's happening right now is the largest transfer of wealth in the history of the planet. And you can either participate in it or you can get left out. So, what you want to do, and I'm not a financial advisor, so this is education, information, entertainment only. But what needs to happen is you need to have a diverse portfolio of assets. You need to have things that generate passive income. You need to have multiple revenue streams. They are planning universal basic income and restricting your ability to generate wealth right now. And if you do things strategically, you can become your own bank and you can use things like insurance. You can use things like being able to borrow against your assets so that you can strategically deal with the tax implications of your wealth. You can do things like putting your assets into a trust where they are protected against being taken away from you or being taxed at a great extent. These are the things that they have kept away from us as ways to survive the financial situation that we're in right now. And it's not going to happen if you don't do it. So you have to be deliberate. You have to connect with people who know the ropes, who understand what's going on, and can give you some guidance so that you can put yourself in a much better position than you are right now. We have these conversations all the time. Your money in the bank is not your money. As soon as you give it to them, it becomes theirs and they do what they do with it. When you go to get it back, they're not going to give it to you the way you want them to. Sometimes, and I'm remembering what happened with Ryan Coogler, the brother who directed and wrote the screenplay for the movie Sinners that got disrespected at the Academy Awards last Sunday night. He went to a bank to withdraw $12,000
Oh, okay. I know you're talking about now. Yeah, okay.
and ended up in handcuffs in a police car, coming to the bank to get his own money. You know, somebody there did not believe that as a black man he could have that much money in the bank, so he must have been doing something illegal. So that's a lesson to us all. It doesn't matter who you are. You could be the most famous black film director on the planet. Go to the bank and you can't get your money out the bank. You know, it's crazy. But if you are your own bank, and by that I mean you have a cryptocurrency cold storage wallet and your crypto in it, you can do transactions with other people peer to peer. You don't go through a bank, you don't go through an intermediary. You go straight to that other person. You send them what you send them, and they give you what they owe you. These are things that we can do right now. So, as you guys navigate the transactions that you're making, I want to thank everybody for joining us. I am going to put links. I'm going to put Nana's email address in the description for this video. So if you'd like to connect with him and find out what he's doing to develop capital through this digital infrastructure, you'll be able to do that. And I will also put a link to information about Wings Academy. If you have school age children, you ought to really seriously consider bringing your children to this institution. It's an African-centered institution, and I guarantee you that your children will walk away with a greater sense of who they are. We have to remember who we are. That's a critical thing in our existence right now. We have to remember who we are, and we are connected to the architects of the entire planet. That's who we are. We just got to wake up. So thank you for joining us. Any parting words before you step away, Nana?
Well, I thank you for the opportunity. These conversations could go on forever, but these are for our people. I would like to remind them, if it hasn't dawned on you yet, these are desperate times, and desperate times call for desperate measures. So this is not the time to sit around and wait for something to happen. This is not that time. This is the time to get involved in your own personal self-interest, like you described. And the bullying that's going on now is simple to understand, in the sense that we're talking about 1% of the global population that wants to control the 99% of the people alive. That's simple. Whatever needs to be done, they are not bothered by it because they live in different arrangements enough. It's only 1% of the people that want to have total control over every other living person. Now that sounds to us like it's crazy.
Crazy, absolutely.
Not normal to 1% of the population. That sounds normal. That's how deranged the people are. That sounds like it makes sense to them. But that's the ultimate bully. 1% of the population wants to control 99% of the rest of the people.
Yes.
That's what Dr. Henry Clark said. The man don't believe in fractions. He want it all.
Yeah. Okay.
All righty.
Great to see you.
All right. Thanks for joining us. And to those who are watching us on YouTube, comment, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and thank you for joining us. As always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself.
Peace.
Make peace.
Peace. Peace.
Make today your best day.
All right there, brother. I guess I'm a scoop now.
Okay.
All righty.